Morning, at least to those in the UK, it's morning. I've had a lot of questions as a response to my last videos, and one of the things that people seem to be asking about is the relative interdimensional aspects of life, and especially stuff about Skinwalker Ranch and other haunted places, cursed places around the world. And people want to know what's the essence of that. How does it occur? Why does it happen? What's happening there? That kind of thing. As I outlined before, it's my belief that our existence is actually a reality which exists in many, many dimensions. Our own lives can go into different dimensions at any time for a whole host of reasons, which I went through in previous videos. And there are a lot of different dimensions alongside one another, and these dimensions can operate in tandem or in isolation. And the further you get away in terms of dimensions from where you are now, the stranger things get, to the point where you'll get to a dimension which is quite a long way away, and there you'll find creatures that we would refer to as aliens, a completely different life form to what we're used to. Now, in terms of places such as Skinwalker Ranch and other haunted places around the world, my own view of what's happening there is that around the world there are various places that exist where, because of geographical anomalies, a portal develops from time to time, either intermittently or all the time, and that provides a connection to other dimensions. Now, the connection could reach to just a few dimensions immediately next to us, in which case we probably wouldn't notice that much of a difference. But it could also go quite an extended distance between lots of different dimensions. And at that point, if it went up through a lot of dimensions to some of these places that we would find strange, and these could include places where there were, in quotation mark, aliens, in other words, life forms that don't look anything like us. And it could also involve creatures being able to move to our dimension from another time. So in other words, they're moving from Earth, if you like, but from a different time. Now, what people often report in these places is that they see strange creatures that have never existed on Earth, as far as we know, but also creatures that have, for instance, long extinct species of animals, including dinosaurs and stuff like that. Although it tends to be the smaller ones. Perhaps the large ones can't quite squeeze through the portal, but the smaller ones certainly can, and stuff like velociraptors and stuff like that have certainly been seen. For instance, at Skinwalker Ranch, people have said that they've seen animals resembling those kind of creatures. They've also seen, and there have been several reports of large wolves, much larger than the ones that exist today. But wolves that did exist, and we know this from fossil records, that certainly did exist on the Earth many thousands of years ago. There were several species of animals which we would see, and if we saw them, they did look familiar to us. Large bears, large elephant-like creatures, mammoths, that kind of thing, and also large polar bears, that kind of thing. But what we do know, and we know this from fossil records as a fact, that those creatures then were much, much larger than what they are now. So this could be the reason why people are reporting these beings. What people also report is that there have been cases where people have fired at these creatures and to protect themselves, presumably. And that those creatures, when fired upon with a rifle or a handgun or whatever, the bullets seem to have no effect on them. They seem to pass straight through, and it didn't seem to cause any ill effects to the creature concerned. Indeed, at some occasions, there's even been reports that people have fired on unknown creatures, and they've simply disappeared right in front of their eyes. Now, again, that could be because they are interdimensional in nature, so in our existence, they don't truly exist. The other thing that happens in areas like Skinwalker Ranch, where there's it seems quite likely there's a portal in play, or portals, because it could be plural, could be more than one, is that people report seeing what we would call UFOs and creatures, if you like, alien beings, who clearly don't belong on Earth. Well, not in this dimension anyway. So what's going on there? Well, if you think about it logically, if there was a portal and it stretched right through from our dimension to a dimension where alien creatures lived, completely different to us, but they'd got the technology to make interdimensional travel possible. And they got their own little craft, which if we see them, we would call them UFOs. And they use that craft to get through to other dimensions. They're doing research, or they've got some other reason for doing it. Now, it would make sense to use a portal that exists, because it essentially would be like an interdimensional shortcut. And their craft would be able to traverse the journey between their dimension and ours using this portal. And it would be a lot quicker, a lot easier, and probably require a lot less power, and therefore fuel or whatever it is they're using to make the journey. In other words, it's a shortcut, and we all know that everybody likes a shortcut. So that's why these two phenomena, if you like, are running concurrently in parallel. You've got creatures appearing from other dimensions, apparently by accident, and people happen to be in our dimension looking on, somewhat startled by this because they're suddenly confronted with a creature that clearly doesn't belong here. And we've also got what we see as UFOs, which apparently appear from nowhere and then start making a journey through our dimension, and people can watch them going across the sky, usually at high speed, and usually doing maneuvers that are impossible within the bounds of our known technology. In other words, it's not ours, nor is it the Chinese, the Russians, or anybody else. There just isn't that type of technology available, as far as we know, at the moment. And I think if it did exist, it wouldn't be long before we knew about it. So there's two things actually running in parallel there. There's the accidental transfer of beings from one dimension to ours and back again through this portal, or portals. And there are also the deliberate use of these portals for navigational purposes by interdimensional travellers who are using it as a shortcut, if you like. So the question is, well, what causes these portals? Why are the portals in some places and not in others? Which, of course, is a very good question. And as I alluded to earlier, that would be geographical and geological. One of the things that you always find in these places where there are strange goings on, the landscape is often in the shape of a crater. And the surrounding geology often consists of a high level of quartz. Now, what scientists know about quartz is that it emits energy, and that's why you can use it in a quartz watch or quartz clock. In other words, they can pulse at a known frequency, and you can use that to tell time. It's been known about for quite a long time. Now, it could also be that the presence of high levels of quartz in relation to the Earth's magnetic field, or other forces that we don't know about, in a crater type geographical and geological setup, could get amplified by the shape of the terrain. In other words, a bowl-like, if you like, a satellite dish almost, effect could take place. And we all know that if you get a satellite dish, the reason it's shaped as a dish is because that gathers up and focuses radio or TV waves. And virtually everybody now, probably most people that I'm talking to at the moment have got a satellite dish on the side of their house or home or flat or apartment building or whatever it is. And these are in use all the time, and we all know what they do. They collect and focus radio waves. Now it could well be, that geographically there are, if you like, accidental, very, very large satellite dishes created by the terrain. In other words, a bowl-like geological structure coupled with the presence of quartz focuses the energy from the quartz and creates a portal, an interdimensional portal. That then creates, if you like, a weak spot in the barriers that separate the various dimensions. And that creates a, if you like, what I often refer to as a gap in the curtains. In other words, we've got a barrier between us, i.e. a curtain, by some unknown force. But at certain points, this barrier may well part permanently or probably intermittently, depending on the Earth's magnetic field acting on the quartz and the bowl-like geological structure. And lo and behold, a portal opens up. And then when that starts happening, all manner of strange effects start to take place. And if you happen to be near that, as in the Skinwalker Ranch, for instance, we've all seen on various documentaries and books and stuff some of the effects that has. And many of them are extremely strange. And some of them are actually presumably quite dangerous as well. People have been injured by some of these forces. And when this happens, a gap appears in the curtains and a portal appears, which could be like a shaft, if you like, going out into many other dimensions, to places that are very strange, to other time periods, and various beings are transported into our domain, and people who are witness to that are suddenly very surprised by what they're seeing. All manner of strange creatures, who then apparently just disappear again, presumably because they've gone back through the portal, and their appearance here was somewhat brief, which is probably just as well. And likewise, as I said before, people are using these portals, beings are using these portals to deliberately go from one dimension to another, or they might actually go through many dimensions to get here. And it's interdimensional, these portals are interdimensional shortcuts. Now, we seem to have, in the West, we seem to have only just discovered all this, and people like myself are hypothesizing about the nature of it all and what have you. But ancient cultures knew all about it, and people many years ago, thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago certainly, the indigenous people who lived there knew all about these portals, and they called them badlands, cursed lands, haunted places, whatever you want to call it. But basically the elders of their tribes would tell the younger people not to go near certain places because strange things happened. The strange things that happened could well have been the sudden appearance of weird, frightening creatures from other dimensions and other times. And also, it could be that the people concerned from this dimension would disappear and possibly never seen again. Or possibly they might be seen again, and when they come back after what apparently is only a few minutes, and people have witnessed this, but they arrive back and they might have, if it's a man, 2 weeks of beard growth, despite the fact he's only been missing for a couple of minutes. So obviously there's some disruption to time. Quite often these people, when they return, can't account for where they've been or what's happened. Sometimes they can, and they say that they've been in strange places and they've been there for several weeks. But to the people who witnessed their disappearance and reappearance, they appeared to be only away for a few minutes. So clearly these portals are not only interdimensional, but they have an effect on time as well. Hence the happenings where creatures from our past suddenly turn up, and you can imagine how frightening it is when somebody's walking down a place like the Skinwalker Ranch and all of a sudden a small dinosaur from way back suddenly appears in front of you. That's certainly happened, apparently, been reported as happening. Or perhaps a large wolf, which is the size of a horse, which currently none of those exist in our domain. One of these appears. So from a distance, it just looks like a wolf, but when you get close to it, or it gets close to you, who's probably more to the point, because I certainly weren't going to hear it, not of choice. They say that it's sort of much larger. I mean, much larger, the size of a horse and larger. So basically, that's my thoughts about interdimensional portals, Skinwalker Ranch, other haunted places around the world where these strange things occur. You might have a different opinion to me, which you're welcome to express in the columns below here. And if you would, press the subscription button, the notification button and the like button. And if you're pressing notifications, don't forget to click all first, and then you'll get all the new updates that I'm providing. Hope this helps. I hope it stimulates a debate, because that's what we need. We don't need people agreeing with everybody just because they come on YouTube saying things. What we need is a debate, an intelligent debate and a polite debate between people who have got other ideas, people who may wish to throw their ideas into the pot. Life isn't about people having all the answers. Nobody has all the answers, least of all me. So any comments, as long as they're civil, are welcome, and I'll see you again.